Hey everybody, today I'm going to work on the Dodge 1-ton. This is a 1997 Dodge 1-ton dual rear wheel, 4-wheel drive pickup truck. This has got the solid front axle. I think it's a Dana 60. I don't remember. But anyways, went for a inspection sticker, and the guy told me, he said, you know, it'll pass, but he said you're going to need a front wheel bearing on the driver's side, ball joints on the passenger side. So today I'm going to do the wheel bearing, which on these trucks here, the front wheel bearing, because it's 4-wheel drive, it's actually what you get is you get what's called a hub assembly, and I'll show you that later. But for right now, for starters, I'm going to show you how you can tell that it's a wheel bearing as opposed to a ball joint. All right, so during the inspection, what the mechanic typically does is he jacks up well, he'll have the vehicle off the ground with a floor jack, or if it's a lift, with a lift, and what he'll do is he'll get a pry bar underneath here, and he'll pry. Now, the difference is it's a little bit harder to detect a ball joint, depending on how sloppy the ball joint is. But with a ball joint, you'll get a little bit of movement out of the wheel, typically this way, tilted back and forth like this. I'm exaggerating it, but you'll get a little bit of movement out of there when you rock it, and you won't tend to get anything this way. Now, on the wheel bearing being worn, you get movement both ways. As a matter of fact, this one, you can actually hear the clicking. Okay, now if you just hear it this way, well, then you're going to look at like your tie rod end or something like that and make sure that's not what you're listening to. But you'll notice if I do this vertically, I got the same thing. And then of course the other thing you can do is you can turn the wheel and look behind there, and you can actually see what's moving. When I get this off, it'll be much more clear. All right, so the next job I've got to do is I've got to remove this extension piece, and that's held on, and you can't really get a socket on there because it's this part's in the way. So they just use an open-end wrench, and then of course when you go turn it, the whole thing wants to turn. So I just put another wrench on a nut down below, and then just put a block of wood underneath here. Okay, and then break them free. Sometimes if they're really tight, you've got an older wrench, you can beat on it. You can feel it turn a little bit, then you know you got it broken free. Once you get all of those nuts off, it's time to pull the hub extension. Now, lots of times that's not going to come right off like that. So, if this has rust buildup between here and this lip right here, this could be seized on there and stuck on there pretty good. Basically at that point, what you're going to do is you're going to wrap on the back of this, and slowly but surely you'll work your way out. You'll work it off. It's not a bad idea if before you reinstall this to clean up this area right here
where it rusts to. And some people even install a little bit of anti-seize compound right there. Okay, so we're gonna have to take this cotter pin and big nut, castle nut out, but we can hold off on that for now because we've got to take the brake caliper unit off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to support it with a piece of wire up off of the coil spring here, up out of the way, so that we're not hanging the weight of this heavy caliper assembly off of the hose. Alright, so we got some big Allen head cap screws in there that I got to pull. Alright, so now that the caliper's been removed, I can take the rotor off. And the rotor tends to rust on the same way that sometimes that extension can rust on. So it's going to take a little bit of beating to get it to break free. Oh, I can get the keys and turn the wheel. Alright, that rotor's really seized on there, so I'm going to use the power of the truck's steering system to try and push it off. I've got a wood block in there, and I'm going to turn the wheel, and the wood block is going to push on the back of the rotor, and it's up against the framing member. This is easy to do with two people. Yeah, that 2x4 was too rotten. Why rotten? Wow, that's stuck on there. Well, that ain't gonna work. Well, that rotor stuck on there so bad, I'm gonna go to plan B. This is an alternative, which is to remove the hub with the brake rotors all in one assembly. I haven't taken this axle nut off yet. I'm going to do that before I can complete this. But for starters, you loosen up the 4 bolts that are behind here. You need a 12-point socket to do these bolts, and they can be tight. Now, here's the trick some people don't know about in removing this, because the hub tends to seize into the mount here, and it can be very difficult to get off if you don't know the trick. So the trick is, don't remove all the bolts, just loosen them about 1/8 of an inch, all 4 of them. Once you get all 4 of them loosened, you're going to wedge something between the head of the bolt, usually an extension, between the head of the bolt and this back part here, and you're going to use the power of the hydraulic system of the power steering to actually do the work for you. Before you do that, you can try putting a brass drift on the back and hitting it with a hammer, and if it's not too seized in, you'll get it out. But most of the time, especially if the truck's been used to plow or run in the wintertime, where they put that stuff on the roads that eats everything, causes everything to rust, most of the time you're going to find that it's not going to come off that easily. This is where it really is pretty much a necessity to have somebody else in the truck who can work the steering for you, so you can support the extension and keep it lined up until it's actually being pinched. Alright, so I got that huge axle nut off. I backed off the nuts. I've got my extension in position. Hopefully it won't fall out since I don't have an assistant to hold it for me. Wedge that chisel in there to help hold it in position until I get a chance to turn the wheel. Doesn't always work. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to keep putting the extension in there, or your spacer in there, and running it over to one side, creaking it out a little bit, running over to the other side, doing the other side, then back the bolts out a little further and repeat. And eventually you'll get to the point where you'll just get a good pop, and that's when you know that you've broken it completely free. And now I should be able to take the remainder of the bolts out, and I should be able to pull this whole rotor and hub assembly off the axle complete. Now at this point, I gotta warn you, you're gonna make sure if you have a ABS, if you have a front wheel bearing that has the integral ABS wheel speed sensor, you have to make sure that your wiring is slackened up so that you can pull it out and get to the plug and disconnect the connector. Oh, this truck, this is a 97. This has front wheel ABS, but the sensor is actually not inside the bearing. It's mounted separately. I did run this truck a little bit in the wintertime, but I never plow with it. So you can imagine how rusted up one would be that did a lot of plowing work. This one did plowing work before I bought it. I bought it secondhand. Probably nobody can hear me. I bought this truck secondhand. It was used for plowing in the wintertime before I bought it, but I think this wheel bearing has already been changed once since then. I think it was changed shortly before I bought it. Now, a lot of people are going to wonder, what the heck am I doing? If the rotor is seized onto the wheel hub, and it's the wheel hub that I'm changing, how is this going to solve my problem? Well, now I can take the whole rotor, wheel hub, the whole assembly, and I can put it in my shop press and make this an easy job. Turn the wheel a bit easier. That wasn't too bad. So now I can take that whole assembly and bring it down and put it on my shop press. I still can't get over how this little amount of play, or what seems like such a little amount of play, can cause so much trouble. I mean, rocking it doesn't seem to move much at all, but you could hear it. I could see it move. Yeah, rocking it back and forth. It's moving. It doesn't seem like much, but the thing to remember is that the further you come out in this direction radially from the axis, the more that is amplified. So if I'm rocking this back and forth, and it's only, you know, a 2 or 3 degree deviation here, by the time you get out here, it's several degrees. So that's why grabbing the whole outside of the wheel was rocking so much compared to here. And if you're like me, you probably wonder why the heck you can't just replace the bearings in these. Maybe you can. This inner seal has a part number on it right there. But they sell the hub as an assembly. They probably just figure nobody's going to want to bother with doing that. You know, I bought this online to get a better price, the replacement one. But I don't even think any of the auto parts stores are taking these as cores. You know, if they were taking these as cores, then you'd figure, well, okay, they're putting new bearings in this hub and selling remanufactured units. But everything I see out there is brand new, and they don't want your old one. So I guess most of the money's in the bearing, they figure. So if you're going to change the bearing, it's just not worth it. By now, future Steve, who does all the video editing, has probably included a caption way back when I was trying to get this rotor off, explaining that I was completely an idiot. This style rotor, because it's 4-wheel drive, heavy duty, this rotor is attached through the hub from the back side. So in other words, this down in here, right here, this is the part of the rotor. These wheel studs actually are pressed in through the back side of the rotor and then through this big plate right here, which is part of the hub. So I was looking at this all wrong. I don't know what the hell I was smoking. This is the front of the hub. This is part of the hub, as is this. This is the rotor behind it. There's no way this rotor can come off without first taking this whole assembly off and pushing all these studs through. And the worst part is, I did this on my regular cab years ago. So I should have remembered what I had to go through. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's why I bought my Harbor Freight shop press in the first place, was just because I had to take this off and bring it to a garage where I know the mechanic well enough that he pressed these out for me. And I was like, well, I don't want to keep having to come back here every time I need to do that. So that's why it was, Father's Day present to myself, bought myself the Harbor Freight sharp press. But yeah, I'm an idiot. Yeah, you don't have to say it in the comments. I just said it. And in fact, if you do say it, you're just being redundant. So this is my Harbor Freight special. This is a, yeah, it doesn't even have, Central Hydraulics is the brand. It's a 20-ton shop press. And it's, the kind of quality you would expect with a Harbor Freight thing. But what do you want for, I think this thing was like on sale, seems like it's perpetually on sale for like $179.95 or something like that. And then if you sign up for their newsletter or flyer, give them the email address, and you'll get the flyer mailed to you, and the flyer always has a 20% off any one item coupon in there. So if you're going to make a major purchase at Harbor Freight, like a MIG welder or something big, that coupon is really a good deal. Hey everybody, yesterday the camera battery died, and I didn't feel like stopping working on this project because I want to get this done before the weekend is over. So I finished taking out all of the studs, and if you're doing a rotor, putting a new rotor on, I don't think the new rotor is going to come with new studs, so you're going to save these studs and then press them back in. The new hub assembly comes with new studs, so I don't have to save those. But anyway, so here's your rotor assembly. So you can imagine why, if you need a front brake job on a truck like this and they're going to replace the rotors, you can see why the labor rate's going to be so high, because essentially you're going to do everything I've just done up till this point. Alright, so here's the hub assembly, the old one, and what I like to do is, before I even start putting the new hub assembly in, put the new hub assembly on the ground right next to it and compare them. You have to be careful when you're ordering these hubs online that you're ordering the right one, because it's like kind of a pain in the butt to, I mean, this particular website, Rock Auto, return policy is pretty streamlined and straightforward, but the problem is, this is how the box came in. And the box that this was in, what had happened was they used those airbags around it. The thing is, this is just so heavy, jostling around the transport, it just beat the hell out of the box that it was in, and the box, and this box that the hub was in. So, but the hub is so beefy and strong that it's not going to get damaged. So there's the new wheel studs. So depending on the application, even if you just look in that model year, there are several choices available based on application. And one of the big differences is going to be whether or not it's two-wheel or four-wheel ABS, dual rear wheel, four-wheel drive, non-four-wheel drive, whatever. All right, so that looks good. yeah, it looks like we get a perfect match. Some of these hub assemblies have the wheel speed sensor for the ABS is an integral part of the actual hub, so you'll end up with a wiring harness that comes off of there. But that looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and press these in. Oh, just a word about this particular assembly here. This is called the Premium Hub Assembly. This is not the cheapest hub assembly that I think they had on their site, but it is one of the cheaper ones, and it's not the most expensive. I mean, you can get some of these hub assemblies are way over $200 a piece, and that's online. If you go into an auto parts store, it's quite a bit more expensive. There's quite a bit of savings ordering this online if you have the ability to wait for your parts, like many shade tree mechanics do. So it can be a little tricky to get it set up in a way so that the studs, as you push them in, aren't going to interfere with you rotating it around and getting the other studs in. So you can see that I've got the stud placed into position there, and now I'm just going to use a little piece of scrap here to push it in, and then I'll rotate it around and push in another one from the other side. And it gets easier after you get a couple of them in there to keep it all together. Then you can lift it as an assembly. I got these nice V blocks that I picked up 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they're going to be perfect for this job. Alright, there's the reassembled brake rotor and hub assembly, ready to go back onto the truck. But now we got to go prep the mount on the truck so that we don't have a horror show of a time trying to get this back on.